Hey, it's Louisa. So welcome back, and let's have a quick look at this really massive question. So this morning I woke up and, I was confronted with this sort of interesting tidbit of information that Elon Musk had rebranded Twitter, and it's now being called X, like literally the letter X. And it jogged my memory suddenly, because I remembered, and I'd totally forgotten about it, but when I was recording my Venus retrograde video just 2 days ago on Sunday, the 23rd of July, I thought it would be good to apply Venus retrograde to the chart of somebody famous that everybody would know, so we could examine what effect does Venus retrograde have in these charts. And I picked Elon's chart just for fun. I just thought, oh, this would be interesting to have a little look at, and was instantly really pulled into his chart, because not only is Venus retrograde in a very prominent place in his chart, and it's going through his second house to do with money and his values, but his ascendant is at 29 degrees in the sign of Gemini, which is absolutely, the sign of Gemini is very much about information. I would also say definitely about Twitter, short bits of information. It's ruled by Mercury, which is all about delivery systems. But also the position of the North Node right now at 29 degrees in the sign of Aries, all of it seemed to be kind of catalyzing some kind of action in Elon's chart. Now, funnily enough, you'll see it at the end. It's just 5 minutes of recording about what I think is going on in his chart. But I was saying that something big was about to happen. He was planning something big about how he could change the nature of information to make more money, but also to change the way we use information and deliver information. So it was very much about quick delivery systems. Really sort of changing the nature of something. So anyway, this morning I got a question within my community, and the question was, has Elon killed the bird? And I thought, challenge on, let's have a look. So what I'm going to do is just quickly show you the chart for the moment that question came into me, and then immediately after you'll see the recording from just a couple of days ago. And what I would say is, you make up your own mind. There's some really big things here. So let's have a look. Okay, so this is the chart for has Elon killed the bird? And it's very interesting. So 25th of July, I find it absolutely fascinating. I absolutely believe 100% he works with astrologers, because what are the chances that he makes this massive change to one of the biggest and well-known delivery platforms in the world, and he makes this big change when Pluto is exactly 2903, exactly in a square to the North Node at 2903, and in a square to the South Node at 2903. This is a really big astrological event. And it is very much about leaving things from the past and stepping into the future. Pluto in an exact square to the node is really showing us how we are looking over our shoulder at the past, but also now realizing that we are oriented towards the future. It is absolutely about transformation. And I think this is really foreboding something very, very big in his decision to do it. In fact, I was talking about this last week when I was talking about the moon, and I'll put a link into that video in just a second. But what you'll see here is actually we are in the space of a grand square. So Pluto is in opposition to the sun. Sure, the sun has already sort of passed that point. It's separating now from Pluto, but we've also got the moon in a conjunction with the South Node. So the sun and the moon are in a square. So everything is in a square. So we've got the sun to do with the personality, the moon to do with the psyche, Pluto to do with the control, and the nodes to do with humanity and the almost like the karmic direction that humanity is headed in right now. So it feels like what he's done is a huge change, which will have an impact on the way we live, and the way we do things, the way we see things. Now, when I did a quick search on the internet, there was a lot of information. The mainstream media are already joking about his his icon, his new branding, the X, you know, saying it looks like it's a porn site and things like that. I'm not surprised because, you know, mainstream media, as far as I can see, has it in for a few really big names. Tucker Carlson being one, Donald Trump being another. Elon certainly gets a lot of bad press, a lot more bad press than good press. And what interests me, and I'm not trying to paint these guys as heroes, definitely not, but I'm always fascinated by people who are being pitched as being awful, as being wrong, as being, you know, like doing something. I think when MSM piles onto somebody, I want to know more about this person, because I always just think whatever is going on, I think MSM, like mainstream media and governments and financial services and the pharmaceuticals and also Meta and also so many different platforms have all been working in some form of lockstep. You know, they've all been working together and delivering the very, very same message. And, you know, we are a human system, us as a community. We're all about, we're all individuals within a big system of, you know, this plane or planet Earth. You know, we are all inhabitants. And when I see this kind of great big idea of homogenization, it puts fear up me, actually, because we are individuals. We are not AI. We are not bots. We are not numbers. We are real life people. And right now, it would appear that the news, that social media, that celebrity, that entertainment, that doctors, you know, that get a voice, for instance, that they're all saying the same thing. And that's kind of statistically impossible. You know, how can we have the same vision, this one vision that is so important? And so, yeah, I am kind of fascinated by Elon. And you'll see in the recording from a couple of days ago that follows from this, I think of him as a sort of interesting bit of chemistry. You know, you add a little pinch of Elon and see what happens, and all of a sudden this massive chemical reaction occurs. So I'm fascinated by this, and I don't think it's an accident that he has picked this time to rebrand Twitter. Absolutely not. In fact, how about this for kind of interesting? The grand square is essentially a massive X. You know, you've got the sun here in opposition to Pluto. You've got the north node and south node and the moon all spelling out a massive X. It is a change. It's a changing point. And so in answering this question, has he killed the bird? When I look at questions, I always look at the ruler of the ascendant, and that would be Venus. And Venus is retrograde. And I always look to see if Venus, you know, if the ruler is in a connection with the moon. And that normally is showing a yes. And it also describes the quality of what's occurring. So has he killed the bird? These two are connected. So I do think he has killed the bird. However, it's actually in a very supportive, energetic. It's not in a I'm going to kill you and crush you and destroy you kind of energy. It's more in a changing vibration. So I think he's changed it. Yes, he has killed something that we knew and we understood. And what I'm seeing here is actually this is a changing point. You know, Venus and the moon in a sextile is very supportive and loving and generous and actually kind. It's brotherly, it's sisterly. And also Venus is also in a conjunction with Mercury, again, brotherly, sisterly. You know, Mercury in a sextile with the moon is actually really showing that more communications come out, and that it's friendlier, it's more accessible, and it's more equal. You know, that we have a chance, that everyone has a chance to have a say. Everyone has a say. It's almost as if everyone can participate now. What I think has happened is that a playing field has been leveled and changed. It's interesting as well, you know, that there's an X, because what it reminds me of is, you know, if you're voting, you put an X on a ballot. Is that right? Yeah. Sorry, I've got Mr. M sat right next to me. I'm not known for voting. I have to admit, I tend to stay out of making decisions and observing what happens. That's my preference. But, the whole idea of X marks the spot. X is where the treasure is. Like, X has a lot of resonance with change and with something quite magical happening. So I'm fascinated by that. So I've put in asteroid Muska to represent Musk. And I wanted something to represent the X, and I found three things. Now, I wanted to look at it vibrationally from a few different points. First of all, I looked to see if there was an asteroid with just an X, and there isn't. And there were lots of things beginning with XA or XI, and it just didn't have the complete X sound. And so I looked at the spelling of EX to see what came up. And immediately I was drawn to asteroid Excalibur. There were two to choose from, and I intuitively chose Excalibur to represent one of the things that the X represents. I then also looked at the vibration of the letter X. There's a lot of people who look at gematria, like the idea that numbers carry vibrations, and X is the 24th letter of the alphabet. So I've also put in asteroid Themis, which is asteroid number 24. And Themis, or it might be pronounced slightly differently, is a goddess of proper procedure and divine law. And so she is one of the Titans, which is kind of interesting because throughout the last few years, I had quite a few intuitions about Titans. So it's fascinating that Themis has come up in this little search. But she's the daughter of Gaia and Uranus, or Uranus. So she is the daughter of Mother Earth and Father Sky, and she is there to ensure that proper procedures and divine law are observed. So she's a really important character. And then Hebe is the vibration of 6, because 24, some people who look at gematria would also look at the 2 and the 4, which equals 6. And Hebe comes up, and Hebe is the beloved younger child she's one of Zeus's children. That's Jupiter, by the way. But Hebe is known as this adored child, this child that maybe was a bit spoilt, but was absolutely doted on. It was perfect. It was beautiful. So looking at these, how do they fit in? Do they have a pattern? And what is going on? So as I dive into this, now obviously there isn't an asteroid Elon, there isn't an asteroid Elon Musk, so I represented him with Musk, this asteroid here, and it's at 0 degrees in the sign of Virgo, which is kind of fascinating to me because Venus retrograde just started a couple of degrees away, so close, really, really close to Venus retrograde starting point. Really saying that Musk is a character of this time, and something interesting has taken place. The last time Venus went retrograde, funnily enough, which was 8 years ago in July of 2015, Venus went retrograde in the sign of Leo in an exact conjunction with asteroid Musk, where it is today. So it does feel like his recent change. I don't know how long he's been planning to take over Twitter and to rebrand it X. But to me, what's happened feels like a continuation of an idea that he was thinking about at least 8 years ago, possibly much, longer, much further before. Often with these massive players who have these great big wealth portfolios and stuff, who make these massive changes, when you look a little deeper, you can see that their plans have been in place for many, many years. They have these really big visions. So it's fascinating that Musk is right there, echoing the idea of Venus retrograde from 8 years ago. It's also in a conjunction with Hebe, which is the beloved child. So one of the things that I think this X will actually do, whilst it's getting a lot of derision on social media right now, and it's getting put down quite a bit, I think it's fascinating that it's in a conjunction with Hebe. To me, it feels like his change that he's just done, which we have not seen the entirety of, this is just day one. I think it's going to have quite an impact and will be seen very, very favorably to the real people, it will be looked on and adored like, wow, this is like the perfect child of social media, or, you know, a platform that people use. Hebe is also, you know, in the 11th house. So the asteroid to represent X, in the 11th house is all about social media and networking. And so I really feel like it will be a very, very popular platform. Now, interestingly, asteroid Themis, which has the vibration of 24, the 24th letter of the alphabet, which is X, Themis is actually very much aligned with Musk, and also Venus retrograde. It's at 26 degrees. It's also fitting in, you know, it is, you know, almost in a semi-sextile to the North Node, and is in a quincunx to the Moon and to the South Node. So it's fitting into a pattern, you know. So the vibration of 24 is also playing out. And Themis, the idea that I think this X that Elon is working on right now has a much bigger remit than we would assume, you know, that maybe it carries some of the ideas of Themis, that it will provide us with a proper procedure and a divine way of recognizing things. Now, I don't know how to interpret that any further than that, but for instance, you know, will it be based on some of the ideas of crypto, you know, where we're all owning the information, we can see when things are written. I know that there's a lot of so-called misinformation and people arguing over facts and this, that, and the other, and they use the way back when machine to look at sites and to see when sites get changed and when key information gets taken out. Is this X, is it going to be something that helps us really track what is actually going on with some certainty? Who knows? But to me, it's interesting. That's all I'm saying. It's interesting that Themis, which is representing proper procedure and divine law, is so attached to this particular astrology. And then finally, I also put in Excalibur. Now, obviously, Excalibur was the knife that King Arthur was able to pull out of the mythical stone. And the whole idea was only when something was worthy enough would the Excalibur be able to be released. So again, there's another idea that I don't want to say that Musk is King Arthur necessarily, because again, I don't know him. I don't know enough about him. But what fascinates me is that Asteroid Musk and Excalibur are connected by virtue of an opposition, showing that at some level it does feel like he has pulled a mythical sword out of a stone, like something has actually occurred, something quite meaningful, the likes of which will unfold as time progresses. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there, and keep watching if you want to see what my original analysis of his birth chart was. But there you have it. There's just a few thoughts. Has he killed it? I think yes. I don't think Twitter will be seen in the same light as we thought of it in previous times. I do think it's definitely changed. And I think it may well have a huge impact on humanity, but for the better. I don't think it's going to get worse, but who knows? I suspect MSM and the systems that like to keep us in this place of massive duplicity and polarity, I think they're going to really panic. So this does feel like something quite mythical is taking place. Anyway, just a few thoughts. Take care and speak to you real soon. Bye for now. And what 8-year pattern might be going on for him. So let's do that now. Okay, so like I said, this is the first time I've looked at Elon Musk's chart. I will say, you know, with the birth dates of famous people, there is a little rating system, and, you know, to say how accurate the time and place is. It doesn't have the highest rating system, but I just figured everyone knows who he is, and quite a few people are curious about him. Lots of people have got very, very fixed and firm ideas about him. I'm actually not sure what I think of him, but I kind of like, to me, he seems a bit like an exciting bit of chemistry. You know, like you add a bit of Elon and then all of a sudden some kind of dynamic change occurs. I like that about him. without saying if it's good or bad. It's not for me to judge. But anyway, he was born the 28th of June, 1971, allegedly at 6:30 a.m. in Pretoria, South Africa. Now, the only thing I'm really not worried about, but the only thing I really want to look at is where is Venus retrograde. Now, she is going retrograde here in his second house. It starts in the second house. It's going all the way back to 12 degrees in his second house, according to his time, place, and date of birth. And then it will move forwards again. Now, for those of you that know the house systems well, you'll know that the second house is associated with money, with the resources you have, with all of the things that you're earning, and also with how you value yourself. And so as Venus is going retrograde in his chart, I imagine that he's gone through some massive changes in terms of his financial strategy. But I also think he's planning something quite big in terms of money. In fact, quite a big shift. So I think during this time, he's probably internalizing and planning quite a few ideas to make a massive, big splash somehow. One thing I notice is also that his ascendant is at 29 degrees in the sign of Gemini, which is quite fascinating to me, because right now, where's the North Node? Is at 29 degrees in the sign of Aries. So his North Node is in an exact sextile to his ascendant. It's in a trine to his descendant, and Venus retrograde is also in this lovely trine to the North Node that's going through his 10th house. Now, the 10th house is about success and power, and also how you're seen in the world. So I think he's going through some massive changes right now. Interesting as well, with the ascendant in the sign of Gemini, there is definitely this interest in news. Like, Gemini is very much about quick news, perfect kind of energy for ideas of Twitter, but also just energy in any kind of way, shape, or form. The Gemini, the idea of Gemini is it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is very quick. He delivers things. It's almost like deliverance systems, energy, information delivery. And you think Twitter, you think the internet, all of those ideas. And then he's even thinking about Neuralink, which, he can keep that idea to himself. It's not of interest to me, but it could be useful for other people. Who knows? But I can definitely see that there's some massive ideas going for him during this Venus retrograde. Now, if I factor in where these other retrogrades have happened in the last 8-year cycles, so in 1999, Venus retrograde started at 5 degrees. It was in a conjunction with his moon, and it went back just to the edge of Leo. And then in 2007, it started at 2 degrees. So again, it's still just on the cusp of his third house. So in the last, and then the last time in 2015, it was 0 degrees in the sign of Virgo and back into the second house. So I would say the last few 8-year cycles have been taking him from this idea of information and sharing information in the third house back into the second house. It's almost like, how can information make money? How can information be a resource? How can the flow of information, how can I become more wealthy by it, or how can my wealth impact it? Again, I'm not saying whether he's right or wrong. Like I say, I think he's like a reactive agent. I like how things have suddenly shifted, because when anything gets controlled, as far as I can see, when things get controlled, they start to stagnate and die. So I like the fact that, things have opened up, and it creates a reaction, and thereby more people are going through changes. So yeah, I can see that the last set of Venus retrogrades in the sign of Leo, and like Virgo into Leo, have been very much in his chart from the third house of commerce and moving information, in particular learning, and how we learn is all factoring in and is moving back into the second house.